right. I think it's the 18th book, or give or take a book here or there. I know it's page 640. Job, definitely one of my favorite stories in the Bible. I think this one is only one by Joseph's story. There's a lot going on. I thought the book was a lot. For some reason, I thought it was like 70 chapters, but it was only 42, I believe. 42 chapters. But it is really good. First of all, I don't know if there's actually an author known. The the time is not really known. It seems like it could be way back when because of the way that certain things are like wealth is counted by sheeps and camels and oxen and donkeys, and that was like way back when, like Abraham days. And I think the area that it was set was like Oz or something like that. Um, so to me, it makes very little importance as to when and where this took place and who wrote it. Um, Honestly, it's very little importance of Job even being real. He is said to be um, the wealthiest and the most astute, the best, the sinless, pretty much, of the East. And that's what sets the stage. It's very specific as to how much he owns and all the kids that he has and everything, just to um, show you that he is pretty amazing. And it starts with his um, children having a celebration, eating out in one of his son's house, I believe. So it starts with the members of a heavenly court came to present themselves before the Lord. And, the Lord asking, Satan is there. And he's like, hey, where you come from? I've been patrolling the earth, watching over everything going on. And the Lord says, oh, have you checked out Job? You know, he is the finest man on all the earth. He is blameless, a man of complete integrity. He fears God, stays away from evil. And Satan's like, yeah, but you have blessed him, and they get into that conversation, and um, I'm not taking this book as literal. I'm not taking this conversation as literal. You can, if it works for you. I don't I don't think that God is a trivial God. I don't think that God is gonna have this conversation with the devil. But let's say he does. I think it's the whole purpose is the story, because the truth cannot be told. It could only be experienced, and in order for you to experience it, a story is a lot easier to put yourself and plug yourself in. So, number one um, lesson of the story is, obviously God says, oh, do whatever you need to do to prove that he is who I say he is. Just don't harm him. Don't touch him. And over here on the side, I wrote, the reason for things happening likely have a reason and or a purpose. Nevertheless, this reason can be so out of your understanding or imagination that we must move forward without the need to know. Now, I don't believe in blind faith. I don't believe, if I believe something is wrong, if my opinion of something is wrong, then I'm going to turn away from it, or I'm going to move forward accordingly. Now, I don't believe in you know, this, it's really, really bad. It's clearly wrong. It's clearly um, doesn't depict any good. It doesn't make sense of anything. But trust God, you know. Well, just trust God. No, I don't believe in that. That is, God didn't give me this heart and this brain and this common sense for me to say, something is absolutely wrong. Just move forward with blind faith. Don't question it. Just you're not that mighty to understand. No, no. But this is not that. The choice that and the gift that you have is to choose how you move forward, or if you even do. That's the gift that you get. You don't have to just settle for less. And in this situation is, it's the struggles that we all go through. At some point, somebody dies. At some point, we question, you know, what's going on. The way that um, the servant and the kid and everybody comes to Job one after the other and tells them, hey, these people just robbed you and took everything. The house burned down, fire came from the sky. This, everything is lost. You know, this is a story, and you got to experience it. My heart can't take experiencing that. I cannot take imagining that. So, in order for me to experience it, I throw myself in the deep end. And, you know, I can't swim. I got heavy boots on. My hands are tied. And I finally make it to the surface after the first hit, and somebody takes my hand and puts it right back down. And I swallow water and I fight and I get up a little bit and get a little bit of air in my. And that happens several times. And that's how I feel that Job is. It's what he's going through right there. And I lose my breath just thinking. So I'm in the story. I'm experiencing bouncing. I'm experiencing this that he is experiencing. Um, I came from my mother's womb, and I will be naked when I leave. The Lord gave me what I had, and the Lord has taken it away from me. So that's basically the conclusion that he comes out of after that test. You know, everything was taken from him, and he comes to the conclusion that it's not fun, it's not cool, it's not even fair. But at the end of the day, God gave me all of this, and God took it away from me. And that's that. Everything comes to an end. And unfortunately, all of this came to an end before me, and it hurts. And I get to experience this, when it happens. I'm sure that some of us have thought, about our parents, definitely about our children, but about our parents, I've been one to be, hey man, I gotta go first. I can't deal with that pain. And then my heart aches when I mature and I'm like, I can't let her go through that pain alone. She's gotta go first so she doesn't have to go through the pain of me going first. And well, it all comes to an end. Nothing is permanent. Everything is temporary. We don't get to choose in what order that gets worked out. There is a natural order of things. first in and first out. Just like you buy 2 gallons of milk, you're gonna use the older one first. That one's gonna go out first. Um, but that's not always the case. Maybe this one didn't take care of himself, and this one got left out a little too long. And even though it was younger and newer and fresher, it went out bad, you know, or it got left open and it went out bad and it went out first, So, and I go back to everything, cause and effect. Everything generally has a reason and a purpose. The takeaway from that is that we don't always know what that reason and that purpose is. So, Satan comes back and it's like, man, you gave him such great health, you know. And he's like, whatever, man. Actually, Satan's words were skin for a skin. A man will give up everything he has to save his life, but reach out and take away his health, and he will surely curse you to your face. And this is not about cursing God. This is about hope. This is about having hope. This is about loyalty. Loyalty to God. Loyalty to believing there's more in control. In the way that I see it. Even his wife was like, just give up, curse your God and die. You're suffering. You got all these boils. Job is scraping his skin with a piece of broken pottery. Like, it doesn't get much worse. I'm sure it can, but it doesn't get much worse. And Job replies to his wife, you talk like a foolish woman. Should we accept only good things from the hand of God and never anything bad? We know that the yin yang, every good has a little bit of bad, every bad has a little bit of good, and that's really not accurate because it's all one, and both of it is in there. And sometimes it's imbalanced. Sometimes it's water, wave whooshing in this side of the good and this side of the bad, but it's just life. And he's like, we've had so much good. We've had more good than anybody. And, you know, now we're going to complain, which he does. But his friends come over and they sit with him for 7 days and 7 nights. Here on the side note, I put life is suffering. Life is suffering. And it doesn't mean that we have to suffer every day. Doesn't mean that we have to continue to suffer throughout life. And I could be wrong. Maybe we do. Um, Living the life that I lead now and that I live now, I suffer a lot less. I know that. And the more I put myself in suffering, the more I put myself in challenging situations, the less I suffer. It's almost like if we have to suffer, and if I choose to put myself to suffer through here, I'm giving a break from suffering here because I'm suffering and life is suffering. I'm just choosing my suffering. I'm challenging myself. I'm taking myself out of my comfort zone and putting myself through suffering. Therefore, it's kind of like being old and working out. You're putting yourself through the suffering, but you're not suffering through sickness and disease because life is suffering and you're choosing this suffering. And God says, you know what, let me give you a break from this suffering because you're doing this. You're making this choice. And that's where our free will comes. Life is suffering. Your free will, the gift is you get to choose the suffering. You take your foot forward, you take some discipline, you have some loyalty, you have some respect for the temple, for yourself, and suffer through this process, and you don't have to suffer through this one. Choose your heart. Working out, dieting, exercising is hard. sickness, disease, you know, bed ridden medicine, cancer, arthritis. That's hard. Choose your heart. Life is gonna be suffering. Um, and in this, I also put a note that mental and spiritual pain was worse than all other loss. That sometimes it's not about the the physical loss. It wasn't about the the houses and the riches and even the children, which that's unimaginable. Um, but it was the mental anguish of not understanding, um, and I think even worse, the spiritual anguish, because he felt like he had been deserted by God. And, 30 something times, he literally asked God to answer him, to tell him, to talk to him. You know, if that doesn't say that he feels deserted, by God, I mean, and that was his biggest suffering, you know. Um, so, he the major part of this book is it's the conversations between his friends and him. In the past, many people, you have strengthened those who were weak. Your words have supported those who were falling. You encourage those with shaky knees. But now, when trouble strikes you, you lose heart. You're terrified when it touches you. My experience shows that those who plant trouble are cultivating evil. So in this one, it's saying, you give great advice, man. You're there for everybody, and you tell everybody to be strong and to, trust the process. And then when trouble touches you, you're losing it. And that's one of his friends telling him. That's Eliphaz, which is true. And then this other one, which to me it's huge. It's a very important quote to me, and I live it. Is in my experience shows that those who plant trouble and cultivate evil will harvest the same. So those when we speak about complaining, when we speak negativity, when we speak about other people, when we are just pessimistic, we're harvesting the same. We're planting that on other people's minds, we're planting that on the universe, we're planting that and cultivating that around us. And it's like we continue to do the same thing but expect a different result. No, you do good, you get good. You do bad, you get bad. You cultivate bad, you plant bad, you're gonna harvest bad. You plant resentment, you plant judgment. Guess what? It's coming back to you. And then you're gonna be what? Poor little me. Why are people judging me? You know, well, dude, you've been judging everybody else. You might do it with a smile on your face. You might do it from a throne. You might do it from a BMW, but you're judging them. Get off your high horse. Can a mortal be innocent before God? Can anyone be pure before the Creator? So I put that. I put a note somewhere else on that because it just made me think, what if we are perfect? Actually, I put that quote, I wrote it, I wrote my little note onto a page in my book. But what if were actually perfect beings and we were conditioned to believe that we were imperfect, particularly because the Bible tells us we're imperfect. The Bible says that we're sinners since before we were in the womb. Or at least the preachers tell us. So, what if we really are perfect beings? What if? What if the only reason we believe that we're imperfect is because that is what we've been told since the beginning of time by our parents, by our teachers, by our societies, by our schools. And then as we grow up, our self-conscious, because that those seeds have been planted so many times and cultivated so many times, our harvest is us proving everybody else right. We do that often, right? You know, when we're talking about we're broke, we're broke, we're broke, we're broke, your mind says, okay, let me prove you right. You know, with me, it was the fake it till you make it. I was freaking miserable. And I'm like, I'm the happiest person I know. I'm the happiest person I know. I'm the happiest person I know. Guess what? My mind started proving me right. And guess who I am now? For so many years, I'm the happiest person I know. I don't believe our Creator would make us imperfect. If there is something to we were made in their image, then we're perfect beings. I don't think the flower is imperfect. I don't believe the stars are imperfect. I mean, they're unsymmetrical. I mean, we can't understand the life cycle 100%, but I don't think they're imperfect. I think they're wabi sabi and perfectly perfect. And I believe we're the same. And that's been a struggle for a long time with me. So that's why I highlighted, can a mortal be innocent before God? Can anyone be pure before the Creator? I think that we could be. But I think that we need to change our DNA in order for our ancestors 400 years from now to be able to have a chance of being pure and innocent. I think we have changed our neurons, our pathways, our DNA to believe that we're just so imperfect. And it's going to take a long time. I mean, this has been around like 3,000 years at least by word of mouth. Humanity's been around for 100 million years, you know. So I can't say that this has completely changed it, but look at the world we live in. Everybody believes they're imperfect. And I don't hear that from any other religion. That's the Abrahamic religions. So I think we have hope if that is indeed a fact. And I don't think God made anything imperfect. And if we were the creation that was made in his image, or her image, or its image, why would we be so imperfect? We were given choice. And we got to deal with the consequences of those choices. And sometimes we don't even know why. If something was happening in the heavens and I'm paying for it here as Job. He doesn't know, but he stands pretty firm. He complains. He's human. He complains. He's hurting. He's lost. But he never curses. He curses his own birth. He doesn't curse God. As a matter of fact, he requests him to tell him, to talk to him 30 something times. Resentment destroys the fool. And I think he knows this. Fools may be successful for the moment, but then comes sudden disaster. And I put that because, sometimes it feels like the enemies are constantly there and they just don't go away and then they don't go away. But, you know, people are born for trouble as readily as sparks fly up from a fire. It just, this whole thing is, you know, problems are here temporarily, temporarily, temporarily. You know, do not despise the discipline of the Almighty when you sin. Um, so this one was, it's consider the joy of those corrected by God. So sometimes discipline is not fun. Sometimes correction is not fun. Sometimes, my last book, my first book, don't judge what you can't understand, have it where God crashes the lady and the kid and, makes the man lose his job. But unlike here, God explained it in that story where he's like, man, you don't know what was coming around the corner. I had to stop him. And your job, man, you was losing your family. I had to make you, sit there and spend more time with your family. And that's just the way that I went about it. And so that's why I say consider the joy of those corrected by God. Because Adam right there was like, wow, man, thank you. Thank you for saving my family. Thank you for saving me. Um, and I highlighted, do not despise the discipline of the Almighty when you sin. God is loyal to you. He's faithful to you. Do not despise how faithful he is to you. Don't despise the discipline of him to you. You might not get it, you might not understand it, but there's that. You can still make that judgment call because that's just not wrong. That's not killing millions of people and creating genocide. That's wrong. There's no understanding that. There's no justifying that. There's no me moving forward saying that's great. That's cool. That's I accept that. No, I accept that as part of history. I'm not accepting that as my heart as that was God's work and that's a positive thing. I'll move forward without arguing. I'm just not accepting that as God's work. But this, you know, yeah, sometimes God has to stop you in your tracks. And when I go through some hardships and some troubles, my eyes get wide open. I'm looking around. I'm looking under the bed. I'm looking under everything. Like, there's an opportunity here. I may not know where it is, but I better not miss it. If I'm going through this, where's the opportunity? Because I got to learn it. I got to learn this lesson. I got to move forward. Why? Because that's my gift. The gift that God gave me is how am I going to deal with what's in front of me? And how am I going to move forward from here? That's it. That's my gift. My gift is not everything is hunky dory, no problems, no no challenges. There's no growth in that. Can you imagine if the lobster's still like this big for the rest of his life? No. He's got to break out that shell. He's trapped in that shell and he's got to go through tremendous pain and discomfort to shed that shell and grow. That's part of life, you know? And and even the lobster has enough sense not to fight that. Just takes it. Just okay. There's a reason for this pain. There's a reason for this discomfort, and I'm gonna grow from it. That's the surrender spirit. You know, so I'm always looking for where the opportunity is. I'm not. You know, I mean, I may ask the why. It's happened to me before. I'm like, why? And I haven't been as grateful as Job. I've been like, there's just no God. There's just no God. There's no way. Thankfully, God is very disciplined about loving me. Um, if my misery could be weighed and my troubles be put on a scale, that is why I spoke impulsively. Do I not have that right to complain? Hmm. Honest words can be painful. It's not all human life a struggle, and that's where I, very much like I put over here, life is suffering, and I like that. It's not all human life a struggle. So true. Sometimes we just don't get it. Why did I write that? Why not just forgive my sin? And that's where understanding, he's like, if I have sinned, what have I done to you? A watcher of all humanity. Why make me your target? Am I a burden to you? Why not just forgive my sin and take away my guilt? For soon I will lie down in the dust and die. When you look for me, I will be gone. And this is very poetic. The whole book is extremely poetic and beautiful. And I believe that it goes, so all these friends that he has, these, I believe, four friends, um, they could represent different things. They could be just that, the true story of the four friends. Um, or it could be, one, the people that you encircle yourself around. They're all different, hopefully. They are diverse in their thoughts, although they're pretty similar in this situation. They could be society. They could be your teachers, your church, your family, your friends, different voices. Sometimes, in stereo, saying the same thing, whether you like it or not. Um, or, my favorite um, translation of this is these are the voices in my head. These are the arguments going in my head because I am not at peace right now while I'm going through this suffering. So my mind is not silenced like when I am at peace. So, over here is, you must have sinned. Where's your sin? What did you sin? God is just. No matter what, God is just. Maybe you didn't even know you sinned. And it's like, who the heck are you to be questioning God and the way that he goes about it? Like you are not worthy of that. All these voices. It's I I've struggled with those voices. I hid under a freaking bed for years, didn't talk to anybody of anything of importance, and had those arguments in my own mind. So to me, these voices are that. You know, pay attention to the experience of our ancestors, for we were born but yesterday and know nothing. And I like this because it's talking about, sometimes we gotta go to the elders, but it also says, hey, elders are not always right. Um, what else? Yeah, it's all just a conversation. It's all beautiful. I mean, I wish I could highlight everything, but um, the constellations, I thought it was weird talking about the Bear, the Orion, constellations in the sky. So it's like the Mayans, having such knowledge about the constellations. That's so long ago. So who am I that I should try to answer God or even reason with him? And on a side note over here, I put lesson. We blame so much on God when He is not even at fault, you know. And this is a big part of it, you know. He never mentions Satan. You know, Satan is doing this to me. Satan is trying me. He's always talking to God the whole time. He's very faithful to that. But he's also putting God at fault. You know, why are you doing this to me? This, that, the other. And he wasted a lot of time blaming God. It wasn't God's fault. God is just that leader that, you know what, it's not my fault, but it's my responsibility. I made it happen. You know, um, remember that you were made from the dust. So this, I highlighted that just because in time wise, you know, obviously Genesis was around because that's where that is mentioned. So it's not before Genesis, but it's likely right around that time that this was written. Not that it matters, but true wisdom is not a simple matter. I love that. Um, Such knowledge is higher than the heavens. Who are you? What do you know? It's I love in this book. One of my favorite things is there's more questions than answers. There's no answers. There's no answers. If you only If only you would prepare your heart and lift up your hands to Him in prayer. Um, what else? You will be strong and free of fear. And fear is something. Having hope will give you courage, and I put a big star there because I go back to where I mentioned hope. You know, I believe that this wasn't about the actual conversation or the actual struggle or the actual sequence of events. I believe that it's having hope so you can have courage to move forward because that's when suicides happen, right? When you lose all hope. And it's a hopeless situation. It can be a hopeless situation, you know, but you gotta be able to dig in. And even if you can't find the reason or the purpose, you gotta trust the process. Now, it's not something evil. It's not. I don't believe in blind faith. But if this is what it is, and God is giving you the gift of how do you go from here, you know, how do you move from here? You know, you don't have to accept it. Accept that it happened. It had to happen. Wayne Dyer, right? I mean, it happened. That was the proof that it had to happen. And so be it. You don't have to accept that you agree with it, that you believe in it. You know, sometimes you just don't, and it's okay. It's perfectly okay. You know, um, but you can't lose hope. You know, that's one of the few things that will move us forward. You know, and will give us courage. Is hope. Um, Job wanting to argue his case with God. If only you could be silent. That's the wisest thing you could do. Will you slant your testimony in his favor? Job asks, how has he sinned? Your own mouth condemns you, not I. Your own lips testify against you. And I highlight that because we all do that. You know, sometimes it's better to just keep your mouth shut. You know, I believe that's probably why I highlighted this one. It says, if only you could be silent. That's the wisest thing you could ever do. I'll put a star because that's a lesson that's been real hard for me to learn throughout my years, and I've learned a lot from it. I've learned that I have a big mouth. Sometimes I just gotta shut it. And I'll learn more and I'll love harder because of it. And your own mouth condemns you. Your own lips testify against you. You open your mouth, you prove what a fool you really are sometimes. No, I have. I could say the same things if you were in my place. Oh, this is this is when, same thing as to we give great advice. He's telling his friend, I could say the same things if you were in my place. I could spot out criticism and shake my head at you. But if it were me, I would encourage you. I would try to take away your grief. He doesn't say this, but I know he does. Instead, I suffer if I defend myself, and I suffer no less if I refuse to speak. And his friends are poking at him. Again, you must have done something wrong. God doesn't do anything without justice. This, that, the other. Don't you realize that from the beginning of time, the triumph of the wicked has been short-lived? That's what I was talking about. This one goes all in that. Sometimes we believe that our trials and tribulations are gonna Patrick Yard. I'm gonna call him. Our trials and tribulations will be permanent, but they're not. They're just temporary. So they're not gonna live on forever. Wow, I went like 4 pages without highlighting something. What if we were perfect beings? Can anyone can anyone born of a woman be pure? My lips will speak no evil, and my tongue will speak no lies. And that's where you see the loyalty. It says, I vow by the living God who has taken away my right, by the Almighty who has embittered my soul, that as long as I live, while I have breath from God, my lips will speak no evil, and my tongue will speak no lie. I will never concede that you are right. I will defend my integrity until I die. I will maintain my innocence without wavering. My conscience is clear for as long as I live. And he's saying, I don't care if you guys just don't believe me. You guys are telling me that I don't even know my sins. You're telling me that I must have sinned, that that you don't have faith in me. Where's the love for me? Where's the mercy for me, for what's going on? Like, yes, I don't want you to feel sorry for me, but I kind of do. And you guys are judging me. Just so judgmental. Not one of you is not judging me. All of you are judging me in different ways. Most of you are judging me in the same way with some different spices to it, and then others are judging me in different ways. Like, the human eye is blind to wisdom and understanding. I put that. So, but do people know where to find wisdom? Where can they find understanding? No one knows where to find it. It is hidden from the human eyes of all humanity. It's hidden from the eyes of all humanity. God alone understands the way to wisdom. He knows where it can be found. Um, the fear of the Lord is true wisdom. To forsake evil is real understanding. And I really like that one, to forsake evil. So sometimes we don't understand what's going on, but we can forsake evil. You know, we don't have to go about it in a tooth for a tooth. We don't, just because evil was done to me, because wrong was done to me, doesn't mean that I should do it unto another. So I put, the eye of God within us understands the way of the wisdom. Stay away from wrongdoing. So I put, the human eye is blind to wisdom and understanding. But the way I see it is, if we look through maybe the third eye, or maybe right from the soul, or maybe we just ripped his body away and looked from everything pure in us, then we could understand the way of wisdom. Because only God understands the way of wisdom. And if God is within us, we can see the way of wisdom if we're looking at it through Him. Hence why some wisdom books are in the inspiration of God, is because even though it might have been written by hand and a human being, it was by the divine um, inspiration. Same thing, you could look through the eyes of God's divine intervention and inspiration, and not through the judgmental eyes of humanity that are so not divine as Him. I made a covenant with my eyes. I love that. I love His discipline, His integrity to say, I made a covenant with my eyes not to look with lust at a young woman. And He just goes on about that. And, I've had this conversation with myself that I'm like, I don't even want to think impure thoughts. I know that I'm walking a good path, and I'm not tempted, or if I'm tempted, I don't move forward with that temptation. But, it's still somewhat of a struggle, because of what I've been told a man is, and those seeds planted and the cultivation, and that's what I've harvested. I don't move forward, but the thoughts are still there. The lust is still there. I want to live without that. I want to make a covenant with my eyes. And I just think that that is just priceless. I think that's beautiful commitment and of full integrity that someone would do that. Elu, oh, this one he was just angry. He was angry at all the other ones. Job refused to admit that he had sinned against God, and his three friends made God appear that to be wrong. And he's like, I am young and you're old, and so I held back from yelling, and I know that wisdom comes from age, but sometimes the elders are not wise. But he's just as judgmental, sometimes even more judgmental. Could God govern if He hated justice? He goes on to try to prove why God is all justice. God is mighty, but He does not despise anyone. I'll put a little question mark there, because that's another one that it's like right after Genesis, before Exodus. Like I don't know. I don't think that man right there seen some other people that God despised, and some other nations God despised. God is greater than we can understand. His years cannot be counted. I love that. And this one has lots of highlights. Oh, that's because this is when God starts talking. Like, where were you when I laid the foundations for earth? And this I would love to read the whole thing, but who kept the sea inside its boundaries? Do you know where the gates of death are? Where does light come from? And here I put, God can be a smart mouth. But of course you know all this. For you was born before it was all created, and you were so experienced. Does the rain have a father? Who gives birth to the dew? Who is the mother of ice? Who gives birth to the frost from the heavens? Can you direct the movement of the stars? Do you know the law of the universe? Who gives the donkey its freedom? So God doesn't give Job a straight answer, much less an explanation. But he comes to him in the form of a cloud or whirlpool, whatever, And he, which is unimportant to me, um, but he makes him realize how he does not think like God, how he does not get to touch the toes of God. You know, where were you when I made this earth? Where were you when I engineered the ocean? Where were you when I stopped the ocean from overflowing? Where were you when I created these animals? Where were you when I engineered how the stars were going to revolve and how it was going to affect the earth? Where were you? Oh, but you know all this. You know all this. You're trying to get me to be trivial with you and your little human being, first world problems. I'm over here creating universes and creating, systems of life and heart and lungs and atoms and neurons and neutrons and you are wondering why I gave you a rash. And I didn't even give you the rash. And you've spent these last 7 days just complaining. Poor little me. Who do you think you are? And your friends, man. You really, guys? You guys are some judgmental, like, love your brother. Love your brother. Be there for him. Console him. Then he talks about these these animals. Um, I had to look some up because it was like behemoths and like he talks about oxens and ostriches and it was kind of cool about the ostrich. She lays the eggs on top of the earth, letting them be warmed by dust. She doesn't worry that the foot might crush the wild animal or wild animals might destroy it. She is harsh towards her son, her young, for God has deprived her of wisdom. Um, um, he has given her no understanding, but whenever she jumps up to run, she passes the swiftest horse with its rider. Have you given the horse his strength or the cloth? And to me, that tells me, I've made it perfect. I made you perfect. I didn't give you the wisdom. I didn't give you the understanding, but I made you perfect. Look at all that you do. Look at all that you've achieved. Just have faith. And he talks about these three animals, which I looked. I think one of them was a hippopotamus, but the other two I looked and there's debate that they could be earthly creatures or mythical um, monsters. Regardless, and then didn't give no excuse as to why even say that it was like they were perfect or they were his creatures or whatnot. But I think it was more about, judgment. Um, it is your wisdom that makes you makes is it your wisdom that makes the hawk soar and spread its wings towards the south? Do you still want to argue with the Almighty? You are God's critic, but do you have the answers? You criticize him. You criticize me. You think you're so much better, but do you have the answers to these questions? Job says, "Man, I've said too much. You know, brace yourself like a man." The Lord says. That's when He comes up to him in a whirlwind. Brace yourself like a man, because I have some questions for you, and you must answer them. Will you discredit my justice and condemn me just to prove you are right? Are you as strong as God? Um, and then I highlighted, give vent to your anger. Let it overflow against the proud. Humiliate the proud. Bury them in dust. Then even I would praise you for your own strength. Your own strength will save you. That's the behemoth. That's what he talks about, the powerful um, beast. But in that where it says, give vent to your anger, humiliate the proud, bury them in dust, to me is, talk to your friends, vent. It's okay to vent. It's okay to complain. Um, but if they are acting like they're better than you, it's okay to, you know, stand on your own strength. And that's what you did. Um, and there's the other Leviathan, no use to capture it, no one to emphasize his limbs, its enormous strength, gracefulness. Yeah, I didn't really get the animal thing. Like it was like it is the king of the beast. Nothing on earth is equal. Um, so I was talking about things I knew nothing about. That's when Job says to them, and and then God restores him twice as much. Got to live a full life, 140 years after this. I don't know how old he was with that. Maybe I messed it in the beginning. Um, and then I put a couple notes here. I put no explanations needed or deserved because he never explained himself. He never told him, oh, it was a conversation between me and Satan. No, and he didn't feel like he needed to. Um, don't quote opinions, where he's talking about stand strong and whatnot. Your own strength will save you. His friends were, they spoke negativity and they spoke lies. I don't think that they meant to lie, but their proudness, they thought that they were better than him. They thought they understood. They thought they had wisdom, and they didn't. And you should not quote people's opinions. You know, um, and that's really hard. Like it's hard enough for us to say, and that's my opinion, right after we say everything that we say. But to say, oh, this, that's their opinion. Um, Listen to others and your thoughts, but make your own decision. Sometimes you got to go through those conversations, but make your decision at the end of it. Find your center and move from there. Judgment is inaccurate. He made judgments, his friends made judgments, and it was all negative and all inaccurate. And I think out of all this, the possibility for a spiritual resurrection happened. And he came back, and he came back stronger than everything. Man, that was the longest one, an hour, even though it was only 42 chapters. But it's a good one. Job.